the International Writing Program takes a hit.
This weekend, we wear pink for a new musical coming to Iowa City.
Iowa basketball battles the Spartans.
Warm temps are on their way. I'll have the full forecast in weather.
All that and more
coming up right now on DITV.
Good morning from Iowa City. It is Friday, March 7th. I'm Ryan Lynch.
And I'm Mark Fortunato.
And the third member of our team, Avery Evans, is live in the studio to tell us today's weather story.
Avery, how is the weather looking for this week?
It's looking pretty chilly out today, Ryan, but it seems like warmer weather might finally arrive after today. Today's temperatures will reach a high in the 30s, with a mixture of rain and snow in the afternoon into the evening. Saturday will be quite the opposite, bringing back the sun with highs in the 50s and lows in the 20s later this evening. I'll be back with next week's forecast, but for now, let's check in with the studio.
A major University of Iowa program is having to downsize. DITV's Isabel Thier is live outside Adler with what changes the university is having to make. Yep. I apologize, we're having some technical difficulties right now. I know. Yep. But a new science standard proposal introduced last month has been facing some backlash. DITV's Annika Perez has reactions to the standards.
I'm currently standing outside of the University of Iowa's biology building, where in 4 years, students could potentially be learning the words climate change and evolution for the first time. Students in every K-12 district across Iowa are impacted by the Board of Education science standards. The new recently proposed science standards would exclude the words climate change and change the term evolution to biological change over time.
These are the words that scientists use. These are the ideas that help us to best explain what we see.
A board of science professionals was put together by the Board of Education to create the science curriculum, but the committee was unaware that the board had removed the terms prior to being sent to the public.
These are really powerful explanatory ideas that help us to do things like develop vaccines, to help us do things like treat disease.
The change could affect college students in the next 4 years, potentially leaving them unprepared for college curriculum. These students are feeling the changes back home.
And these students, a lot of them come from farm families, agriculture families. Climate change impacts them, and they see that. So I think they're just as frustrated as I am when we can't have those actual conversations.
Some educators at the university believe the change is leaving out a key factor of evolution.
Understanding that our climate has changed and that organisms have evolved, and that explains the diversity of life we have now. It's no longer a topic of debate.
The science standards will be reviewed for the second time later this month. From the East Biology Building, Annika Perez, DITV.
And now we'll send it back out to DITV's Isabel Thier with the latest on the university's International Writers Program.
Thanks, guys. The International Writing Program, or the IWP, at the university is having to cut some of their programs. The State Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs is making huge cutbacks to that department. The IWP will be operating without around $1 million in federal funding. The youth summer writing program and online courses for cultural exchange programs will end entirely. The IWP's residency program in the fall will only take around half as many candidates. The residency receives funding from sources in forms of gifts and non-governmental programs, so it's not hurt as much in the loss of funding. The university says the IWP has a strong impact and is an economic investment. I'll send it back to you guys in this.
And bills are fighting to make it out of committees in the Iowa House and Senate as the deadline to make it looms.
That's why we have DITV's Kayla Smith to give us a rundown on the bills trying to fight the clock.
Thanks, guys. Now we've reached the first deadline of the legislative session, meaning that any bills that haven't passed through committee yet will be dropped for this year's session. Now let's go ahead and examine some of the bills that have just barely clawed their way out. One of these bills is going to be House File 712, which looks to ban vaccines in the state if a manufacturer refuses to waive legal immunity for lawsuits. Opponents of the bill are concerned that this could potentially open the door to unfounded insurance claims and restrict access to vaccines in the state. Proponents believe that this would allow quicker compensation to victims of vaccination injuries. Now let's take a look at another bill that has recently advanced. House Study Bill 285 requires law enforcement officers to enforce immigration laws. If they fail to enforce said laws, they would be guilty of a Class D felony. The punishment would include at most 5 years in prison, as well as a fine of at least $1,025. Now moving on to a bill that has recently advanced in the House. House Study Bill 286 looks to criminalize homelessness. Under this bill, unauthorized camping on public property could be punishable by 30 days in jail and up to $885 in fines. Now cities could create designated campsites for people experiencing homelessness to stay without penalty. A similar bill failed to advance in the Senate on Wednesday. Now, some tariffs enforced by the Trump administration are being walked back. Trump's 25% tariff against neighbors Canada and Mexico are being walked back to an extent. Thursday, Trump announced that auto exports for both countries would be exempt from these new tariffs. Canada has retaliated against these tariffs, removing American alcohol from store shelves. Other goods such as groceries, gas, and more could rise due to these tariffs. President Trump is staying consistent that these tariffs will help Americans in the long term.
Have ripped off this country, our beloved USA, and they're not going to be ripping us off anymore. So, I think that has an impact on the market.
Trump also threatened retaliatory tariffs scheduled for April 2nd during his joint address to Congress. Now, things continue to stay pretty busy within our state and national government as I send it back to you guys in the studio.
2 people were charged with stealing from an Iowa City employer. 20-year-old Grace Elise Morrison and 26-year-old Jared Lee Johnson were charged with check forgery and first-degree theft. The two cashed over $25,000 in fraudulent checks from an unnamed employer over the course of 3 months. They are currently in custody by Iowa City Police and awaiting a court sentence.
The Iowa City Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Center is preparing for major job cuts. The National Veterans Affairs Department is preparing to cut as many as 80,000 employees nationwide, of which 300 Iowa City employees are expected to be cut. The Iowa City VA said the round of firing will have no negative effect on veteran health care, benefits, or other services.
A local Iowa City business has been drawing the attention of students and locals lately. 223 Baby has been a staple Iowa City store since 2021. Owner Macy Kroll also spends her time in West Branch at her other store, 223 Vintage. However, these stores aren't just ordinary places to shop, as both specialize in her love for a unique style.
With thrifting, sustainable clothing. I fell in love with finding vintage pieces. My mom loves vintage. My grandma had a bunch of vintage in her house, so I was always surrounded by it.
Hand furniture, home decor, and clothing. Although 223 Baby sells new items, it still contributes toward a greater cause of shopping local, as each item is sourced from a local business. Both stores focus on eco-friendly products and help the environment as much as possible.
A thrilling performance is coming to Iowa City this weekend. Hampshire Auditorium is hosting the Mean Girls musical and is expecting a large turnout. Mean Girls, a comedic satire on high school cliques, has taken many forms throughout the years. Mean Girls started as a popular movie written by Tina Fey and has now been adapted into a variety of different mediums, such as the touring musical coming to Iowa City and Hampshire.
It's just a real privilege to be able to offer these Broadway titles here in Iowa City, and to get such robust support from our campus and the broader community.
With an expected audience of 6,000 people, Hampshire is excited for the Iowa City community to join together and enjoy the Broadway musical. The Mean Girls performance will take place from March 7th to March 9th before continuing its North American tour.
And coming up later, a look at the rest of the week's forecast.
And stay tuned to learn more about how times are changing and what's new in Hawkeye sports.
All that and more right after the break.
In Iowa City, history is being made every day. DITV is capturing it all. The future of our nation.
I'm here at Big Grove Brewery, where the Johnson County Democratic Party is hosting one of many
Wisconsin, which has been an influential county in American election history.
In Las Vegas, Nevada, where a few hours from now polls are going.
Historic careers.
And despite the slow start, the Hawkeyes still managed to get their first win of the season.
Disappointing night on the West Coast for the Iowa Hawkeyes, not just because of the loss.
Iowa defensively, they played a full 4 quarters, but offensively.
Student experiences.
I'm at the Ped Mall in downtown Iowa City, the center for nightlife.
I'm here at the Ped Mall, where Iowa City residents come downtown to celebrate a beloved Hawkeye tradition.
The Iowa City Animal Care and Adoption Center, where volunteers are working round the clock to get these animals adopted.
Politics, sports, and art. Local, state, and nationwide. In front of the camera, behind the scenes, DITV.
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 DITV Sports.
DITV
is capturing history.
Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in on thedailyiowan.com or listening on KRUI 89.7 FM.
Now let's send it back to Avery, who's got a look at the week ahead.
Thanks, guys. We can expect to see plenty of spring temperatures next week. On Sunday, it's going to be mostly sunny, with a high in the 50s and lows in the 30s. Monday looks to be the warmest day of the week, with highs reaching the 70s along with plenty of sun. On Tuesday, expect to see highs in the 60s with a fair amount of sun shining through. Wednesday will be in the 60s as well, with a low temperature in the 30s. Finally, Thursday will follow this trend of warm weather with highs in the 60s and a mixture of clouds and sun throughout the day. I hope you are all as excited as me to see warm weather after this chaotic week of rain and snow. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Avery. Now, this was a big weekend for some big Hawkeye sports.
Big is exactly right. With all of it, it has been very intense. We're going to send it to Ryan Paris right now.
Thanks, guys. As March tips off, Iowa basketball is in the endgame, with both teams eyeing success in the upcoming tournaments. First, we'll send it out to DITV Sports Director Brady Barron in Indy for the women's basketball tournament.
The Hawkeyes started off their tournament with an 81-54 victory over the Wisconsin Badgers in a game where the youngest players got some extra experience that would prove invaluable in their next matchup. In round 2, the Hawkeyes took on the Michigan State Spartans, a team that they lost to previously in the season. But this time, the game would have a different conclusion. Michigan State started the first quarter with a 9-0 run, but Iowa answered with a 12-0 run in the second quarter, taking a 32-25 lead into halftime. But in the third quarter, foul trouble caught up to both Lucy Olson and Hannah Stolke, and Coach Jan Jensen picked up her first technical foul to help the Spartans tie the game 37 apiece.
I wasn't the best example tonight of getting composed with the refs, but I told them, let me do that, and you guys need to do your jobs. And I thought they did a really good job. After Hannah Stolke's fourth foul, it was freshman Ava Hayden's time to shine, and shine she did, laying the ball up to take the lead and following it up with an and one chance.
All the reps that I've been putting in the dark have been helping a lot with that. Just waiting for my opportunity and working towards it, and so that when I do get that, I can shine.
Hayden's career-high 10 points helped the Hawkeyes secure the 74-61 win.
Ava's spark got us going, and we just didn't want to lose that game, and I think we all came together collectively and made sure that didn't happen again.
Next up, the Hawks have a matchup with a completely fresh Ohio State Buckeye squad who the Hawkeyes previously lost to in overtime in Columbus, Ohio. But now I'm going to send it to DITV's Elise Gann, who's back home in Iowa City, with a look at how the men's team fared against their own battle with the Michigan State Spartans.
Thanks, Brady. The Hawkeyes and Spartans faced each other on the men's side as well, but the Hawks couldn't quite get past MSU as they took a loss on their senior night.
You know, my first year, we played them 3 times. Beat them here, lost to them there, and then played them in the tournament. We had the last shot. Matt missed the last shot, but we were right there.
Although facing a top 10 opponent, Iowa made it a tight one against the Spartans, acquiring a 14-point lead in the first half and holding on to the upper hand for the majority of the game. Josh Dix led the pack with 18 points, while Peyton Sanford and Seydou Traore each scored 15. However, their efforts were not enough for the Hawks to keep up.
I think how they competed tonight and what they did, I just want to take my hat off to them. They were killing us in every way, shape, and form. And did we wear them down a little bit? Maybe.
Although Iowa had control for most of the game, it was never over for head coach Tom Izzo and his Spartans. The Spartans locked in with a 19-2 run in the second half, which would ultimately earn them the lead and keep it that way for the rest of the game. Iowa took the loss 91-84, while Michigan State clinched the Big Ten championship.
I'm really proud of the way that we fought, with our backs against the wall, and we came out. We never kept. We never quit until the last buzzer. So proud of the way that everybody fought. Everybody stayed, in it.
The Hawkeyes will have one more chance for the Big Ten tournament as they'll take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers this Sunday in a win-and-in opportunity. From Carver Hawkeye Arena, Elise Gann, DITV Sports.
After their win against the Spartans, the women's basketball team will play again tonight in the Big Ten quarterfinals against the number 3 seed Ohio State Buckeyes. Iowa faced Ohio State earlier on the road this season as they forced overtime but were unable to come away with the upset win. It will be the Hawks' 3rd game in 3 days, and if they were to win, they would appear in the conference semifinals tomorrow. And the men's team also has 1 game left this season, and it's essentially win and in or go home to get into the Big Ten tournament. The Hawkeyes sit 1 game below Nebraska in the Big Ten standings, but hold the tiebreaker by virtue of beating the Huskers earlier this season. If they win on Sunday, they make the Big Ten tournament as the lowest seed, and if not, season over. The game will be streamed on Fox Sports, and tip-off is set for 11:30 a.m. in Lincoln, Nebraska. And while both basketball teams are in Big Ten tournament mode, the Iowa wrestling teams are gearing up for their biggest tournaments of the season. The women look to defend their national title this weekend in Coralville, and the men's team is at Northwestern for the Big Ten championships. DITV's Cole Krieger is at the Extreme Arena with the details.
Ryan, I'm here at Extreme Arena where the NCCWC National Championships will begin today at 10 and continue through Sunday night. All 15 Hawkeyes that went to the regional tournament qualified for the national round with an impressive 43-5 record that day. Those 5 losses were all Hawkeye-on-Hawkeye bouts in the championship round of those weight classes.
Coming off of regionals was just the step to get to here.
Additionally, the men's wrestling team will begin their Big Ten tournament today in Evanston, Illinois. They come in still riding the wave of momentum from last weekend's upset victory over Oklahoma State. 10 Hawkeyes will wrestle as they look to bounce back from 4th place finish last season. Ryan, back to you in the studio.
Cole, as winter sports approach tournament season, regular season Big Ten play is just beginning for the Iowa baseball team with a 3-game weekend series at Rutgers. The Hawkeyes are coming off an 11-3 win against Loras, in which Gable Mitchell and Reese Moore reached base 9 out of 9 times, and Blake Guerin hit a 3-run homer. Rutgers beat Delaware 8-2 on Tuesday and scored 5 of their 8 runs in the 7th and 8th inning. The Hawks can get their record above 500 with a series win, and Rutgers can do so with a sweep. That's all we got for sports for now, so we'll send it back to the desk with Mark and Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. And Mark, it's nice to see these Hawkeye spring sports heating up pretty early, especially with that season coming up.
Absolutely. With springtime heating up, there's also the weather heating up too. Let's send it back to Avery with the weather.
Thanks, guys. As the first day of spring is inching closer on March 20th, expect to see a high increase in pollen, particularly in grasses and budding trees. For those of us that have allergies, it may not be a particularly enjoyable time, but the weather... If you're looking to keep away from pollen, avoid being outdoors during the early morning and evening, as this is when pollen counts are at their highest. Hopefully this upcoming spring season will be enjoyable for everyone. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you for joining us online or listening on KRUI 89.7 FM.
We are here live from Iowa City every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8:30 a.m. and online anytime at dailyiowan.com.
For Avery Evans, Ryan Paris, I'm Ryan Lynch. See you again on Monday morning right here on DITV.